everyone, I'm Ann Yorks. I'm the owner of the Flower Box, and I am so excited to be doing a live cookie demo today. We just released all 28 of our new Christmas cookie cutters for the 2022 decorating season, and we had a blast yesterday just kind of putting out there all the new cutters. And I'm so excited to share two of my favorite designs today. We're going to do the Nutcracker and Clara with the Nutcracker set. So I am excited to be sharing this. Let me show you what we're going to be making today. We have the full Nutcracker set. I have the cute little mouse king. I'm going to be doing this cookie, Clara, and we're going to talk about how to make those fragile little arms and legs. It's not as tricky as you might think. We're going to do this cute little Nutcracker. It's just an explosion of details. He is absolutely the cutest. And then part of this set is also the Sugar Plum Fairy. And so we're going to just take a look at these two cutters today. And I am so excited to do this Facebook Live. Definitely tell me where you are watching from. The Flower Box is located right in the center of Pennsylvania. So we're in Center Hall, Pennsylvania, and it is a beautiful day here. I have to say that we have already started playing Christmas music around the shop and even in our house. So maybe you're like me, you've started putting on the Christmas tunes. Oh, awesome. I see Georgia. I see Nebraska. Hey, everybody. It's good to see you. Okay. Well, let's get jumping into the cookie decorating just so that you can see what I have prepared is some royal icing. And if you're looking for more information about how to make royal icing, we have a great blog post on flowerbox.com with lots of videos about how to make the icing and icing consistencies. So I definitely encourage you to check that out. But today I'm going to be using the icing in the piping consistency, and I have a tip number 2 on my icing bags. And then I also have some flooding icing, and these are in these tipless bags, no tip required, just because we don't need quite as much control over that. I'm also going to be using some 20-second icing today. This is a medium icing consistency between the thicker piping icing and the thinner flood icing. And I'm going to talk about that as I'm using it on the cookie. So, okay, let's go ahead and jump in. We're going to start with that Nutcracker first. And I have had so much fun making nutcrackers over the years. Actually, my husband has a big collection of Christmas nutcrackers that we get out every year, which is a lot of fun. Now, when you're decorating with royal icing, so this is our end goal here. This is what the cookie's going to look like. When you're decorating with royal icing, to get all of this really neat dimension to the cookie, it is helpful to allow the icing to dry in phases. So I've actually created cookies today that are stepped out into the different cookie phases, and I'll talk a little bit about that dry time as we go through that decorating process. All right, so I'm going to start with the outlines on this cute little nutcracker, and I have some black piping icing with a tip number 2 on the icing bag. And I'm just going to start outlining at the top. I'm going to touch down with that icing and just bring that hat around the top of his top hat. Now with these nutcracker cookies, I am using a combination of the piping and flooding technique, and I'm also using a 20-second icing. And one of the reasons why I'm using some 20-second icing is because these cookies have some really thin icing areas, and I find that the 20-second icing does a great job of creating those small icing areas. But for the larger icing areas like the black hat, the red jacket, I will use the pipe and flood. I just find that I like those results for those large areas better. So I have a sienna colored icing in my tipless bag, and this is one of those icings that is a 20-second icing. It is a medium consistency, and when I use it, I can outline and flood with the same icing bag, which is kind of nice because you can do it all in one step. Plus, if you're not using tips on the bags, I like it because the cleanup is a lot faster. And there I'm just going to fill in his face with that 20-second icing. So now we're going to outline his jacket. And I have a red piping icing. Now, one of the things that I have done over the years with this Nutcracker is I'll actually start the jacket with a U shape. So I'll start in one armpit. I'll bring down that side of the jacket, come across, and then just bring down the other side of the U. I find that just helps me to set off that outline nice and successfully. Now I'm ready to add in the arms. So I'm just working my way down, outlining these cookies, but if I was doing a dozen of these cookies, I would do them in an assembly line. I would take my time and do all the hats on all the Nutcrackers, and then all the faces, and then all the jackets. I find working in that assembly line system really helps to speed up the decorating and make things look more consistent. So now I'm just adding that shirt underneath his jacket there using a 20-second gold icing. It's time to add his little pants. This is a navy icing. It really has lots of gray undertones, so it makes a great color for the pant. And I have found that that color comes in quite handy. So it's a very slight dot of that navy food coloring to get that nice pastel color. Now this cookie is almost done being outlined. I'm just going to finish off the boots at the bottom with the black. And I love outlining the cookie first. I find that it just helps me to see where I'm going and allows me to kind of then just fill in. It's almost like a coloring book, and I like to see generally what the end result is going to be. All right, so let's start flooding in this Nutcracker. Now, one of the things that we have done with our Christmas release is we have a cookie decorating guide. This is actually an ebook, but I had mine printed. And in the book, there are some step-by-step photos and written instructions to help you know what the steps are. There's a list of all of the icing colors needed for this cookie set and a list of materials just to help you be really successful in recreating these cookies. So you can find this on flowerbox.com. This is a download. This is our 2022 Christmas ebook. I hope that's helpful for you as you get started decorating. So let's flood in the Nutcracker's hat first. And I have my bag of black flood icing. I do like to be nice and generous with the icing as I'm flooding in cookies. I like a nice full look to the icing once it's dry to keep that icing puffed up and looking flat. Notice I just really fill in nice and generously, and I don't leave any of that cookie showing. That'll give you a nice full look once that icing is dry. Now I'm ready to flood in this little shirt area, and I'm just going to be real careful as I work my way around the bottom of the face. And again, I'm just going to be nice and generous. Now, allowing the icing to dry between steps is helpful to create that really neat dimension that royal icing can do. And it can also be really helpful in preventing your icing colors from bleeding into each other. So there are some benefits to allowing that icing to dry before moving on to the next step. And I'm going to flood in the Nutcracker's boots. Now, I do want to be able to see the line between the boot. And I have added that line as a piped line. So when I'm flooding in this area, I'm going to flood both of the boots in now, but I'm going to be real careful not to bump the icing up against that line. I'm going to just flood close to it because I don't want the icing to go up and over that line and lose that definition. So I just have a nice generous fill, and I have my cute little cookie scribe, and I'm just going to tap that icing into place, and that way I know the icing isn't going to flow up and over those boots, and it'll give me those two distinct looking boots at the bottom of the Nutcracker. All right, now this is where I'm going to stop with this cookie and let that icing dry. Whoop. I'm just gonna slide that one out of the way, and then I have the next step already ready to go. So this icing had a chance to dry. And we're going to start filling in his red jacket. And again, I want to see that line there between the side of his body and his arm. And so I'm going to flood close to that line, but I'm not going to touch it just because I want to just tap that icing up against that line so that the definition is there after the icing dries. All right, so that's pretty close to the line, and I'll just use that scribe tool just to tap it into place. I did add a little bit of a lapel detail here, so you can touch that icing into place just to make that look a little crisp. Give it a little bit more definition. And then I'll just work the icing on the other side. So now his jacket is all flooded in, and you can see that those lines where his arms are still visible. And that'll just look really kind of neat once that icing is all dry. Okay, so now we're almost done with the piping and flooding. We just need to fill in his pants. And again, I'm using that pastel navy just to flood in, and we'll just do that little tapping trick just to keep those legs looking distinct. Now at the end of the cookie demo, I'm excited to show you all of the different cookies from the cookie release. So stick with me. I'll have a cute little, what I like to call a cookie parade. All right. If you have any questions about the cookie decorating or royal icing, you can definitely pop them in the comments. I'd be happy to answer those as well. So now we have our Nutcracker almost all the way filled in. He still needs his hair and his hands, and that'll be our final step before we start adding details. I have some white flood, and I'm just going to work that around the curves, really just using that shape of the cookie to guide this little flood. And I'm just bumping that right up against the side of his face and his hat and his shoulder. And then I'll add the little hand. And we'll keep this real simple, just a little small dot of icing for the hand. Okay, now that this cookie is all flooded in, it is time to have some fun. Piping the details is always the best part of the cookie decorating process. And I definitely love just bringing the cookie to life. So now this cookie has lots of icing colors, which isn't always typical, but if you look at the full set, the Mouse King, Clara, Nutcracker, the Sugar Plum Fairy, all of these icing colors are shared through all 4 cookies. So for example, the Nutcracker has a gray belt. It is the same gray that is used on the Mouse King. So I do like to share those colors between cookies in the sets. I find that that's really helpful. I see Only has a question. She asks, how long do you allow cookies to dry? Do you air dry or do you use a dehydrator? That's a great question, Only. I actually use a fan to blow air across the cookies on the cookie sheet to dry the icing. It just helps speed things up. It adds some shine to the icing, reduces cracks and craters in the surface. And so I find that for me, that's one of the easiest, most approachable ways. Using a dehydrator is also a great choice. And there is a good blog post about that on the Lila Loa blog. So you can check that out if you're interested in more information. Georgianne has lots of good tips on how to do that. Okay, so let's take a look at our little cookie details. It's time to bring this guy to life. We're gonna start off on his hat, and I have just a little rope detail that's draping across the hat. And I find that I'm always keeping my icing bags nice and clean. So just if you notice anything on those bags, just wipe them off with a paper towel. So I'm going to give a good squeeze and just drape this gold rope coming across the top. I'll add the fleur-de-lis on the hat, and that's just 3 teardrops of icing, 1 in the center, and then 1 on each side, just bringing that in. And then there is a piped accent, just a piped line on the Nutcracker's hat, and this just gives that hat a little bit of a look that it has a brim to it. So I'm just going to add those 2 curved lines. Now while I'm still holding that black icing, I'm going to add 2 little dots for the eyes. And then I'm also going to add the mustache, and this is more of just a scrolling motion with my piping bag. So I'll start on the left side first and add that little half of the mustache, and then just scroll on the other side. And now we're ready for some rosy cheeks. I have just a little bit of pink here today for today's demo. And this bag isn't trimmed yet, so let me just show you. I have this bag seam side up. I have my small little craft scissors, and I just trim off just a little snip on the very tip there to get that icing flowing out. And now we can add those rosy little cheeks. I'll add a few little swirls for the hair. So I'm just curling in opposite directions. Adds a little fun texture onto our little nutcracker there. And now I'm ready to add these fun little shoulder details. I'll start off just by doing a half circle outline and flood that in. And now I'm going to use really light hand pressure to add the fringe. So I'm just bringing that fringe down. I'm really not even squeezing the bag at all, just because I don't want to add too much icing to this detail. So we have our little shoulder fringe, and while I'm still holding the bag, I'm going to just add an outline to clean up this area along the jacket. Sometimes adding those piped lines can really bring a detail to the foreground or even send another detail to the background. So I do like to add those piped lines. Next, I have a little bag of gray icing, and I'm going to add a belt going across the center of the jacket. Again, this is that 20-second icing. So I can just use one bag to do the outline and the flood on this small little detail. I'll add a little bit of a ruffle onto the chest. And we're almost done with the jacket. All these details, they're just so much fun. All right. Now, yes, I am using tip number 2, and I'm using a really light hand pressure. But if you want to size down, and I am going to size down to a tip number 1 once we jump on to doing the face on Clara, it can help just give you a bit more control over that flow of icing. I'm going to add 2 little buttons onto his boot, and this guy is all done with all his fun details. That is such an adorable cookie. So I hope you had fun watching that. Let me just check and see if I'm answering your questions. Let's see. Oh, so Christine asked, how do you do things assembly line on cookie sheets without smudging the others? So, Christine, I actually will work on the middle row on the cookie sheet first, and then work on the row that's closest to me, and then I'll flip that cookie sheet and work on the back row. So I will move the sheet as I'm working, but I find it's a little bit quicker decorating directly on the cookie sheet when I'm doing that assembly line. So I hope that helps give you some ideas on how to speed things up. All right, I'm gonna set our little nutcracker to the side, and we're going to jump into Clara next. So Clara, these cookies are a lot of fun, and actually I made a series of nutcrackers last year for my daughter, who just loves ballet. She loves the Nutcracker, and I had a lot of fun making these cookies. So I knew I wanted to do a set of cookie cutters this year for this Christmas, and these cookies are inspired by my cute doodles on Etsy. So this is based on clip art from that Etsy shop, and It was a lot of fun just to take an idea like that and bring it to life and kind of figure out how to make it a cookie. Now in your in the decorating guide, there is a sheet. Now this is a PDF download, so you would be emailed a PDF that you can download and print this template. And I cut out just the head and the dress. I feel like that's the part that I need the most help with when I'm trying to think through where does the icing go in here. Sometimes when you're just staring at that blank open cookie, it can be a little intimidating, but using a yellow food marker and adding some guidelines can really just give you a lot more confidence. So I'm just going to trace that template onto the cookie, and it really doesn't take long just to add those few lines, but it definitely will give you lots of confidence when you're trying to figure out where the face shape goes and where the dress is. So now I just have some little yellow lines on there to help guide my outlines. So I'm going to start the outlines using a 20-second icing, and I'll show you how to outline the cookie, and I'll spend a little bit of time talking about how to make the arms and legs, because I think sometimes that seems intimidating, but it actually isn't that tricky, and it is a lot of fun. So I'll start with outlining her face. I'm using the Sienna 20-second icing. Now I'll outline the dress. And now that we have her dress in place, I can see where her arms and legs are going to start and stop. So one of the helpful things about this decorating guide is that there are step-by-step photos showing how to work through the cookie design, and I hope those photos are lots of help. But whenever I'm doing arms and legs, I just start off the arm as a stick person, arm, hand, and thumb. And I find just figuring out where the arm is going to go is step one. And then I will add just a little bit more icing to that arm and fill that in and thicken it up. And there you have her arm and her thumb in place. So it's not a super detailed hand, that's okay. It's just a cookie. Now I'll do the arm on this side. Again, just like a stick person. So I just did the arm, and now I'm gonna add the hand. And I'm going to just fill that in, just thicken that up using that 20-second icing. And there you have, her arms are on the cookie. So I think on this design, those arms are probably the more intimidating part of the design. But let me just encourage you, you don't need to be intimidated by that. If you can draw a stick person, you can definitely create those arms. Now I'm just going to add her legs, and she'll have little ballet shoes on her toes. She's up on point. And so I just bring that foot down to a point. No need to worry about making a special shape there at the toe, because that's where the shoe is going to cover the tip. And there her arms and legs are on the cookie. So next we'll outline her hair. And again, I have a 20-second icing. It is very helpful when you're working with a color palette that has lots of icing colors to use that 20-second icing. It'll help speed up your prep time a little bit and your cleanup time. And she's kind of off to the side as she's dancing, so her hair is sort of spilling down below that arm. Now, I would let those arms and legs dry before flooding in the rest of these areas. And because those icing areas are so thin, that's really just a quick dry. You could probably let that dry for 15 minutes before moving on to the next step. Now we can flood in her hair and her dress. We're gonna add the bow on the top of her head. And we'll also add the shoes as well. I think one of the trickier things about using that 20-second icing is sometimes it doesn't self-level as quickly as the more traditional 10-second flood icing. And so again, I find being generous with that icing does really help that icing to kind of smooth out and level. I will also use my scribe tool and wiggle that in there just to tap down any peaks or points that are sticking up in an icing area. Or you can even get that icing to level just by giving that cookie a little bit of a shimmy, and that will flatten down all of the icing. So once we have her hair in, I'm ready to flood in her dress. And I see Martha's comment that these remind her of the mermaids. And yes, these are, the idea behind creating those arms and legs, there are similarities to those mermaid cookies as well. So it is fun. Once you learn how to decorate one cookie, you can use those same ideas and skills to decorate other ones. So now we have a nice full flood on Clara's blue dress. And then on the tips of her toes, I'm just going to add just a little dot of flood for the tip of that ballet shoe. And you can reshape that shoe just a little bit if you want to, using your scribe tool. All right, now she is almost flooded in. We just have a couple of icing areas remaining. And I have one more cookie prepped to finish in our flood icing. And I'm just going to fill in her face and her neck. And I'll tap that icing. I'm just evening out the line between the top of her head and her hair just to get a nice even line. All right. And we have the other half of her bow. We did the bow in 2 phases just to give it lots of volume. So we already have that 1 dot of blue flood on there. Let's add that 2nd dot. And that just gives us that super pumped up bow in the middle. That is so cute. So now we're ready to start adding the details to Clara. And her details are maybe a little bit easier than the Nutcrackers, but we do have this very little delicate face to contend with, which sometimes can be a little bit intimidating because, you know, it's one of the focal points of the cookie. So I'm actually sizing down to a tip number 1 on my black for the eyelashes, and that'll just give me lots of control over that flow of icing. It won't add too much icing to the surface of the cookie. And I'm gonna do the same thing on the red. I'm just taking off that tip number 2 and putting on the number 1 just to keep those details nice and delicate. And I'm going to keep my hand pressure very light, just barely squeezing as I bring out that little half circle for her eyelash. And then I found about 5 eyelashes. I'm really not even squeezing the bag. I'm just touching down onto the cookie. It's almost like, in a way, a pen, just pulling out those little eyelashes. And some people do prefer using pens. So if you wanted to use a black and a red marker for these really delicate features, that would also look really nice. Just a sweet little smile there with her eyes closed. She just looks like she's lost in her dancing. All right, I'm gonna finish off her hairband. So I'm just gonna bring a ribbon up to the top and down. And I'm going to fill in that center using a large dot of blue. So now she has her cute little hairband on there. And I'll add some movement to her hair and some texture with some piped lines. Again, I'm using that 20-second icing, so it's a little bit thicker than the flood and will hold its shape. But to keep these lines nice and thin, I'm definitely just using a super light hand pressure. I don't want to add too much. And then just a couple wavy lines going down the side. That just looks so nice. Her dress has a little white collar on it, which I'll add using some of this flooding icing. And I'm really using the tip of my bag to kind of push that into place. And you can also get a little help from your scribe. And a little line across the cuff. And then she has a little loopy bow and some buttons on the front of her dress. The gold belt, we'll add this just like we did to that Nutcracker using that 20-second icing. One bag to do a little pipe and flood. And then some movement to her skirt with a couple of piped accent lines. So I'm going to add a little ruffle at the bottom. One line coming down the center. And now we are almost done. I'm just going to add just a little X detail for the laces on her ballet slippers. Now you can definitely, I'm still using tip number 2 on this blue. but you can size down to a tip number 1 if you want even more control over that flow of the icing. And now our sweet little Clara has come to life. Now, if you take a look at our Sugar Plum Fairy, there's a lot of similarities between these two cookies with creating the arms and the hands using that same technique of the stick figure and the same technique on the ballet slippers on the feet as well. So I think you can do both. I hope you guys enjoyed getting a closer look at all of those cookies. That was just lots of fun to do, and I am excited to see what you make. So if you do recreate these cookies, definitely tag me or share a picture, post it on our Facebook page. We would love to see what you make. Now let me show you what we've been up to. I actually have a little cookie parade for you. I have all of the different cookies from our Christmas cookie cutter release. We just put out 28 new cutters. We have some regular size cutters, mini cutters, and even a couple of extra large cutters. So let's take a look at what is in the shop right now. We have a new Christmas manger set, and this set has 8 different cutters. And actually, this large cookie in the back is the jumbo gingerbread house. And so that is, there we go. Now we can really see all those beautiful cookies. That is such a fun set. And we also have a Christmas Classics cutter set. I love this set. This is so fun. Makes this really cute, symmetrical, bubbly looking Santa face. A really fun, chunky stocking with these really fun pom-poms. And again, if you're looking for instructions on how to make these cookies, they're all in that ebook that you can find on flowerbox.com. This cute little present. I love this chunky little bow on the top. That is just so much fun. And then a real classic Christmas tree shape. So, and then these cookie cutters, we really loved these. So this was one set that we decided to also make mini. They're just a little bite-sized, and they're so yummy and delicious and easy to decorate. These are also a great option to decorate using that 20-second icing because it'll really speed things up. Now, I do love the multi-cutters and the cookie set. So a multi-cutter is one cookie cutter with one press. You can cut 3 cookies. This is the multi-tree. This is over the top. There's so many decorations on here. That is so funny. And some mini cookies from mini cutters at the bottom. So I hope you love that new multi-cutter. Last Christmas, I taught a online class called Holly Jolly. And the Holly Jolly class had this snow globe, it had the Holly Jolly plaque, and it had this roly-poly snowman and roly-poly Santa. Well, I've created 2 more characters to go with that Holly Jolly. I have the penguin and also the reindeer. So these 2 are the new cookie cutters. Christine, I see you have a question about when the next class will be announced. We will be announcing the next class, which will be on December 10th, so you can save the date for that. It will be a holiday class, and we will be releasing the theme of the class mid-November. So in about 2 weeks, those details will be out. Now, one of my favorite parts of our release is actually this jumbo gingerbread house, and this house is 6 1/4 inches wide by 6 inches tall. This is a really fun cookie to decorate. I can see kids having so much fun, and I used some sprinkles on my house. The cutter is just this large jumbo cookie cutter. It's just a great handle on there too. And that just cuts that big house. This is the same. I trimmed off the chimney to make a stable in the background for the Christmas manger set. And I also did this in a pink version as well. I love the roof on the pink. I just had so much fun making these little flowers. Here's a sneak peek of the next cookies I'm going to show you. But this jumbo gingerbread house is so much fun. This 7-inch box, you can find this 7-inch window box on flowerbox.com. We actually have these boxes available, and it makes such a great size to put this jumbo cookie in there. All right, are you ready to see my favorite cookie set from the release? This is actually my screen on my cell phone too, a picture of these cookies. It is our gingerbread set. We have a gingerbread elf, gingerbread with antlers, our gingerbread with scarf, and then I love this little beehive of icing. Gingerbread with icing. These are so fun. These gingerbread cookies are a super approachable design. I think they're great for beginners. Of course, they go great with that jumbo Christmas house. And so I think those will be a lot of fun to decorate and to give as gifts. One thing I wanted to mention is to celebrate our Christmas release. Actually, can we go look down on this? To celebrate our Christmas release, we have these really cute cookie artist keychains. You just have to peel that film off of there. It's so satisfying. And it's this clear acrylic shiny keychain. It says cookie artist. We're popping one of these keychains in with everybody's order that's over $25. So that will be included with orders placed through tomorrow night, which is Thursday at midnight. So definitely get one of those keychains. We do have lots of bundle deals. So when you pick up the entire set, if you like all of those gingerbreads, if you pick up all 4, get the bundle, because the bundle, those cookie cutters are marked 10% off, so you save 10% with the bundle. We also have a huge cookie cutter set with all of the cookie cutters, so if you love them all. And it also comes with a free Baking Spirits Sprite. So Baking Spirits Bright. So if you get that big cookie cutter set, it has this adorable little gingerbread scribe in there as well. And when you get that big cookie cutter set, you get the download for free. So as soon as you purchase that download, it's $9.99 for this book. It's 50 pages with tons of color photos, lots of fun. And a link is emailed to you with your guide of the book. All right, I think that is our cookie parade. I wanted to say thank you so much for joining me and decorating the Nutcracker and Clara cookies together. I cannot wait to see what you make with the new holiday cutters. We are not done with our holiday plans, so stay tuned. Follow us on social media and check out your emails from us. We have some new holiday cookie decorating kits coming out, some new YouTube videos, and then we do have an online class coming in December. So as always, you guys, thanks for watching. Happy decorating.